Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy, and we're back with some more NFL DFS picks and lineup advice for both FanDuel and DraftKings for tonight's single-game showdown slate Monday Night Football between the Bears and the Vikings. In this video, we'll talk about the top plays for both FanDuel and DraftKings, lineup strategies for both low-risk and high-risk contests, discuss some projected ownership, and just some general advice to help get you to the top of those showdown leaderboards. Before we get started, go ahead and click that subscribe button below. That way you get notified when all of our videos are released here on YouTube. We just hit that 2K subscriber mark and be on the lookout for our 2K subscriber giveaway. More details in future videos. So let's start the journey to 3K subscribers. Give us a thumbs up if you like this video, and any questions you have about this showdown slate, you can hop in our Discord channel, or you can just comment below on this video and we'll answer your question before the slate locks 8:15. Yep, 8:15 p.m. Eastern tonight. So Bears and Vikings, let's start with a low risk strategy. If you've read our Showdown ebook, as we talk about in all of our videos, our 15 chapter ebook with back tested research and data on how to be profitable in single game showdown contests, we have an entire chapter on low risk contests. Remember, low risk contests, 50-50s, double ups, head to heads, where half the field doubles their money. You want to try to lock up all the touchdowns in the game if you can. And the way to do that is to roster both quarterbacks and both starting running backs. So let's talk about that tonight. So Dalvin Cook, going to be by far the most popular player on the slate by a wide margin. In fact, let's bring up our Occupy model. There's our real-time player dashboard at occupyfantasy.com. Ranks every player on the slate, both FanDuel and DraftKings, for single game contests always, and also for classic contests as well. If we sort by DraftKings captain projected ownership, you'll see that Dalvin Cook 35% compared to just Allen Robinson 16%, next highest projected. And on FanDuel, that difference is even more pronounced, 54% projected MVP to just 20% for his quarterback, Kirk Cousins. So a really big difference. So Dalvin Cook, Kirk Cousins, Nick Foles, that locks up 3 of the 4 core low-risk plays. Now the big question is Chicago's running back situation. David Montgomery has been ruled out with a concussion. Now there are a couple options to replace him. In reality, it'll probably be some sort of committee approach. Here are the guys to keep in mind. So Ryan Nall has been on the team for a while. If you played NFL preseason DFS, you definitely know the name. Always got a ton of carries in preseason DFS. And he's next in line. He was Montgomery's direct backup. And when Montgomery went down last week, Nall was the guy playing in the hurry-up mode. Caught 4 passes, including a touchdown last week. 6 career catches, 2 career rushes in regular season NFL. He's probably the first guy in line to get those featured touches. Now, obviously, we also have Cordero Patterson, who may see an increased role. He's been kind of the change of pace running back here for Chicago. You see, anywhere between 1 to 4 targets per game. 1 to 3 to 4 rushing attempts per game. Maybe he gets a little more tonight, but I imagine his role won't change that much. Other guys to keep in mind. Wait, now we have to scroll all the way down here on DraftKings. Artavis Pierce is the running back 3. He only played a couple snaps last week. Hasn't really played much at all. Maybe he gets first crack over Ryan Nall, but that's doubtful. But just something to keep in mind, especially for high-risk contests in a situation we don't fully know what's going to happen. Pierce is a guy to keep in mind. Maybe he gets more work. Maybe he doesn't. More likely, he's just the reserve running back. The other guy, they signed him to the practice squad. Now he's on the active roster. They promoted him. Is Lamar Miller, and now we have to scroll even further down. He's literally the last guy listed in the salary pool. Obviously hasn't done anything this year. Been injured the last couple years. Not the best running back in the world at this point in his career. Can't imagine he gets too many touches after just being on the team for a couple weeks. But again, he's a veteran. Maybe they trust him more than Ryan Nall, despite Ryan Nall knowing the system, as we like to say. But again, definitely a cloudy backfield. If we had to guess, ownership and likely touches go to Nall. So if you're playing low-risk contest, Nall is the guy you want from this backfield if you can afford him. Now, if you put Dalvin Cook in your captain spot, just $1,700 left per play. Not really much you can do here. When this happens, if we don't get underpriced plays, generally we have to take Dalvin Cook out of the captain spot, put him in the flex spot, get a different captain for low-risk contest. The key here, especially on DraftKings for low-risk contests, doesn't matter who your captain is. Obviously, you want to try to get the highest scoring player if you can. But the primary, most important aspect of a low risk DraftKings showdown lineup is to get those 4 core players, those 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs in however you can. Now, if we go over on FanDuel, it's a little bit more difficult. So Dalvin Cook, 17.5. I mean, this is like more than Lamar Jackson territory as far as his salary goes. So 17.5. We get Kirk Cousins. We get Nick Foles. Now, if we try to put in Ryan Nall, who's 10K, that only leaves us $4,500 left per player. The min price is 5K. This can't work. So, not the most optimal approach here. If we had to play a low-risk lineup on FanDuel, let's say you find some inexperienced opponents in head-to-heads or some small field double-ups or small field low-risk contests where there aren't a ton of experienced entrants, then maybe you can drop down the Cordell Patterson at 8K. That leaves you $6,500 left. Now you at least get a piece of the backfield. Maybe he's the lead back. We never know. And now you can fit in a value play to round it out. So just something to keep in mind. All right, let's go back to DraftKings. Now this game total is 43 or 44 points, depending on when you watch this video. Time of recording, it is, let's just pull up the Occupy model, 43.5, so right in between. The Vikings are 3.5 point favorites over the Bears. Let's go back. So low total game. Generally, we want running backs in our captain spot. And as we said, everyone's going to rush to put in Dalvin Cook in your captain spot, right? I mean, the dude's coming off 2 ridiculously good games. The field's going to play him like 90% overall. So you have to, the real decision point tonight is, do you play Dalvin Cook at captain or do you not play Dalvin Cook at captain? If you decide to play him, and you probably should in smaller contests. I mean, he's one of the top plays in our model. Generally good overall captain play with his volume, considering everybody else on the slate in a low total game. So if you play Dalvin Cook, how do you get different? You either have to play one lower owned play, like less than 10% ownership, or at least some salary on the table. So if we look back at our Occupy model and we sort by DraftKings flex ownership, we see some guys here. Anthony Miller, just 13% owned. Lamar Miller, 5%. Riley Ridley, Chad Beebe. These guys are all sub 15% ownership, so something to keep in mind. A couple sub 20% owned plays. So none of these guys really rank that highly outside of maybe Darnell Mooney, who, by the way, if you listen to our weekly DFS podcast for the main slate, if you read our daily plug, we talk about our underperforming receivers every week. These are guys that get a lot of opportunity in the 3 weeks prior, for whatever reason, haven't capitalized. Darnell Mooney's been on the list a lot this year. He capitalized a couple of weeks ago, and he's back on the list again this week, and he's super cheap. We don't expect him to be that highly owned at all. So Darnell Mooney, a great pivot. Even if you're playing large field contests on DraftKings, a great cheap captain option to help fit everybody in. So Dalvin Cook, tough to fit in some value plays or low-owned plays. So maybe the approach is save salary. Leave $500 to $1,000 left over, even more if you're playing really large contests. The other idea, if you don't play him, because there are some good, even though it's a lower scoring game, some good high-priced players in here. Allen Robinson, obviously, both quarterbacks, and then Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson. It can be tough to fit multiple of these guys in here if you captain Dalvin Cook, given his ridiculous price tag, $20,400. So maybe the approach is kind of similar to how we were looking at the low-risk lineup and putting in, let's get him out of captain, flex. Get like 2 or 3 of these guys in your flex spots and go with a cheaper captain, like Mooney, like one of the Bears running backs, a defense maybe in a lower scoring game. So something to keep in mind. Now, FanDuel, 54% projected ownership for Dalvin Cook. He's the most likely to score the most points. Let's put it that way. Is he that much more likely? Difficult to say. Anytime we can get leverage on quarterbacks in the single game mode on FanDuel is something we should take advantage of. So Kirk Cousins at just 20% MVP. Obviously has 2 great weapons he can throw the ball to. And then Nick Foles as the underdog quarterback. I tend to lean towards playing these quarterbacks when they're not the most popular captains, right? They're not the most popular for a reason, but Dalvin Cook's also not going to continue scoring 3 touchdowns a game or whatever he's been doing. So maybe the approach on FanDuel is Kirk Cousins, 1 to 2 of his elite receivers, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, maybe Dalvin Cook in the flex spot too. His price is just crazy. His price is really, really crazy for a running back on a FanDuel single game slate. So whether it's Cousins or Foles, they provide the best leverage. I mean, because we go back, let's look at the model. FanDuel MVP, I mean, even Allen Robinson is projected to be a higher owned MVP than his quarterback, Nick Foles. Pretty crazy. So lots of leverage in playing those quarterbacks. Just remember, because Cousins and Foles rarely run the ball, if you do put them at the MVP spot, you have to think if they're the optimal MVP, they likely throw multiple touchdowns, which means you should have at least 1 to 2 pass catchers from their team in the flex spot. So, for example, if we put, let's just say, Nick Foles, then we'll definitely want Allen Robinson, Darnell Mooney, for example, right? 2 pass catchers. If they score touchdowns, I mean, Nick Foles is throwing the ball and scoring touchdowns, which means he's likely the optimal MVP. So that'll do it for this video. Be sure to check out our daily plug, occupyfantasy.com. We'll detail all the outlooks for every single player on the slate and then have very action-oriented lineup advice for both low risk and high risk contests for FanDuel and DraftKings. All of our final thoughts in that daily plug, occupyfantasy.com. Also at occupyfantasy.com, you get access to the Occupy model we showed you. Ranks every player on the slate for FanDuel and DraftKings along with projected ownership. And before we get out of here, go ahead and click subscribe. One final reminder, get notified when all of our latest videos are released. Shoot us that thumbs up. We appreciate it. Lets us know you appreciate these videos, and then we'll continue to do more of them. And then any questions you have, just hop in the comments, and we'll answer them for you before the slate locks tonight, Monday night, 8:15 p.m. Eastern. So Brian Jester for Occupy Fantasy. Appreciate you listening. Good luck tonight, and we'll talk to you soon.